I'll start in a bit Yosef because it's markers there. So it says, ויש מקומות נוהגים שנוהגים לומר מזמור לתודה. There are places that are accustomed to do מזמור לתודה. הודו לאדוני קראו בשמו, כאשר הוא כתוב בדברי הימים, like it says in דברי הימים, לפי שדוד קבעו לאומרו, because it says King David decreed to say this, enacted to say this, בכל מקום, בכל יום, every day, לפני הארון, in front of the ark. כשמגיע לכי כל אלוהי העמים, against this pasuk, אלילים, יש להפסיק, so you should stop there, make an interruption, בין אלילים, between the word אלילים, ובין ואדוני השמיים עשה, and those words. שלא יהיה נראה כחוזר למעלה, so it shouldn't sound like he's returning to what was said before. ויש שמוסיפים, also there are those who add, עוד פסוקים, other verses, אחרים, וכך מפורש מקום כמנהגו. מקום כמנהגו. So he says, every place goes according to his custom, ויש אומרים שהפסוקים והמזמורים שמוסיפים קודם, so he says there are those who say the verses and songs, שמוסיפים קודם בית שין ובאשכנז נוהגים לומר בית שין מיד. So he says some they add before the bet shin, and then Ashkenazim, this is their custom is to say bet shin right away, miyad right away. V'acharav kulam mizmorim, and then all after that, so bet shin is Baruch Shemar, right? So let's read that again one more time, right? Make sure we got this straight. V'yesh omrim psukim mizmorim. So some say these psalms and songs shemosifin kodem Baruch Shemar. They do it before Baruch Shema. But Ashkenaz nohagim lomar Baruch Shema miyad. But it says in Ashkenaz and in Germany, what they do is they first say Baruch Shema right away. V'acharav kol hamizmorim, and also then afterwards they say all the other psalms and these songs. Ben bechol ben b'Shabbat, whether it's weekday or Shabbat. V'achi mistaber. So he says that's the way. It seems reasonable. Leaktim habracha. To precede the blessing to all these psalms. So in other words, the Torah likes the Ashkenazi minhag better. There should be in all of them a blessing before and after. So then he goes on to say, Ashkenaz nagim shelo lomar mizmor letodah b'Shabbat. So he says on Shabbat they don't do Ashkenaz. They don't do Mizmor LeTodah, the Yom Tov, and also Yom Tov. If you should end Todah Korban Behen, because you don't have the Thanksgiving Korban brought on those days. But he says you don't really have to refrain from doing this to prevent it. There's no concern. It says we're not concerned that you may come to bring it, when the Beit HaMikdash is rebuilt. I'm not going to go that far. It's a little bit far-fetched. The law because people don't make mistakes like that. So it says when it comes to Tehillah David, right? Ashrei, you should have intention over there, kavanah. You should have concentration. Rabbi Elazar, because Rabbi Elazar said Kol ha'omer tehillah David, b'chol yom gimel pa'amim, whoever says Ashrei 3 times every day, muftach lo shehu ben ha'olam haba. He's assured that he's a member of the olam of the world to come. So he says, but the main element there, the main verse is to say, to have intention, to have concentration on the pasuk. Why is that? Because that's for parnasah. The Hashem opens his hands and gives us parnasah. He satiates all the creatures of the world. Gives everybody their portion. So therefore, a person should say this with concentration in order to evoke divine mercies, right? Then he should get what he needs, sustenance. That's the idea. Okay, good. Let's go on. Sheikar, so it says like this, right? Sheikar ma shekav'u lomar b'chol yom. So it says hu bishvil oto pasuk. But it says the main reason why they enacted to say this psalm is because of that verse particularly, right? Why is that? Shemazkir bo shivcho shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he mentions the praise of God. What's the praise? Shemashgiach al b'yotav, that he watches out and he guards and all his creations, and he sustains them with the sustenance. It says before that they say Asher Yosef Betecha, that verse over here. Mishum, why is that? Because we learn from there that a person has to sit 1 hour before he prays. And it says afterwards, custom is that verse at the end of it. Katab Rabbi Amram. It says Rabbi Amram, hallelujah. What we're trying to do, right, is to put consecutively one hallelujah after the other. The kulhu parshiot ad kol haneshama telelia anachnu itnenu sof pirkat hallelujah. So he says because all these parshiot, all these portions that we read, each one has at the end of the psalm hallelujah. V'resh pirka hallelujah the hallelujah the bata tehillah tehillat Adonai daber pi. So he says the beginning of this portion is hallelujah. The hallelujah the bata tehillah David, because hallelujah that we have after tehillah David yidaber pi resh pirkahu, because that's the beginning of the portion. Mishum hach, he says because of that mosifin anachnu nevarech ya, we add this verse which says we will bless Hashem b'koflin pasuk kol haneshama, and we say twice the word kol haneshama telel ya hallelujah. Why do we say that twice? ונוהגים לכפול סוף פסוק של כל המזמור למזמור. I'm sorry, let me read it again. כופלין פסוק כל הנשמה לפי שהוא סוף פסוקי דזמרה. The reason we said we double it is because it's the end of פסוקי דזמרה. בספרד נוהגים לכפול סוף פסוק של כל מזמור. But it says in Spain, custom was to double each of the end of these psalms. בתוקין הגאונים יש נוהגים. So it says, and in this book, בתוקין הגאונים יש נוהגים. There are some who are accustomed. It says there, לומר ויברך דוד. Also this psalm, ויברך דוד את אדוני לעיני כל הקהל. David blessed Hashem in the eyes of all people. עד ומהללים לשם תפארתך, until that point. Kasher hu b'sefer divrei hayamim, just like it's written in the Chronicles. V'yivarchu sham kivodecha ad shirat hayam. And then he goes right into the song of the sea. As Yashir Kasher hu b'sefer Ezra, like it's written in the book of Ezra. B'shirat hayam v'ata'am, so it says, in the Song of the Sea, it says the reason because because all those 15 leshonot, these languages, shel shevach, praise, he's hasturim bebirkat ishtabach, which are arranged in blessing of ishtabach. Doresh b'mechiltin, it extrapolates them in the mechiltin, mitoch shirat hayam, from the Song of the Sea. This is from those verses, Shel Vayvarech David, from the verses of Vayvarech David. That's very interesting. So that she's trying to say, right, that they're all linked together, these things. That's very interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So let's. Right, this is the end of the Bet Yosef, in the end of the chapter. So we'll do a Shulchan Aruch and we're done with this chapter. So it says in Shulchan Aruch like this: Mizmor LeTodah. So this psalm, Yesh Leomra Benegina. You should say it with a good, nice melody. He says. So he says, you know why? Because all the psalms are destined to be nullified, except this one. He says, in the future, only this one will remain. So all the Tehillim will be gone, right? Except this one. Can you imagine?
I'm sorry. Is this the Mizmor LeTodah? Is it Psalm 100 or is it Baruch Shema?
No, not Baruch Shema. No.
So Psalm 100, no?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, thank you.
So Tehillim Kuf. So says the Ramah here. ואין אומרים מזמור לתודה בשבת. So he says, Rama, Ashkenazim don't say it on Shabbat, ויום טוב and יום טוב, or בימי Pesach, and also Pesach, right, which is coming up now. שאין תודה קרבה בהם משום חמץ. So he says, you know why? Because we don't bring Todah in those days because there's chametz in there. ולא בערב Pesach, and also not the eve of Pesach. Siman, look over there, it says Siman Tav Tzadik Tet, below Be'erev Yom Kippur, and also not on the eve of Yom Kippur. Ve'ayin Le'el Siman Tav Resh Dalet, V'chen Nahagu V'medinot Elu. So that's custom in our countries, right? So yeah, very good. So that's the custom of the Ashkenazim. But we do say them. We do say Mizmor LeTodah, right? Throughout all the times. Sfardim we do say. Okay, good. So I guess that's the end of it. So we'll go to the next chapter, Let me just check if we finished all the Shulchan Aruch here. Yeah, so there's a little bit more Shulchan Aruch that we didn't do. So it says Shulchan Aruch like this in the Chet. En omrim azminot b'merutza kim benachat. So he says, right, something important to know. That we don't say these mizmorim, these psalms, right, in a like running through them. You have to read them gently, nice and slow. Because once you start racing, in some kind of a Grand Prix, right, racetrack. So it doesn't come out so nice, right? You start to sounding like some kind of a crazy person. So even though you're in a hurry, whatever, but the proper thing to do is to say these mizmorim slowly, nice and soft, nice and easy. The truth is also, there's another place. It says in the Shulchan Aruch, better to say less slowly than to say more quickly. Even though you're going to skip some of them, better to skip and say slowly than to say fast everything, Oh, let me just go, run through everything, Yeah, I finished. Yeah, you finished, but you ran through it, like a maniac. So what's the point? That's not what we need. Not respectful, Also, since we're on this topic, I want to tell you something very important. You should know that a Jew, always when he's praying, this is one of the things that he has to be very careful about, which is that not to mispronounce the words, to pronounce everything properly. Make sure you take your time, and make sure everything is said properly. Because if you don't pronounce properly, what happens is that it loses its effect, what you're saying. Doesn't have the same holiness, doesn't have the same power, doesn't have. So better to say nice and slow, easy, take it easy, right? And don't run like a maniac. All right, that's the most important thing to know about this. As the Mekubalim say, right? The Kabbalists say that when a person reads these things, whether it's Torah or he's reading tefillah or prayers, he's creating angels, by reading them. Every word that he says, like an angel is created. But the thing is that if you're not reading it properly, and you're reading the wrong pronunciation, so the angels are also, that you're creating are like kind of retarded angels, not really the good ones. So if you want to have good angels, to create good ones that are strong and powerful, that can carry your message up to the heavens. So then read everything nicely and slow. Don't run, right? Don't be in a hurry. Better to say less and do it nicely.
Actually, recently I saw a video of a person doing the whole morning prayers in 15 minutes. And I actually shared it with the ladies. And
I saw that you posted that, by the way. I saw that. And I listened to a little bit, But here's the problem, okay? This guy, he's a little bit of an amateur. So, there's one thing he doesn't understand. That you can't just, like shorten the prayers, according to what you feel like. You know what I mean? Like, in other words, but the truth is, that, he has a point. In other words, the point is like this, okay? When you're in a hurry, you have to go to work, okay? You don't have time. So you got to make it short and sweet. Sometimes you got to do it. There's no choice. So then you can say a little bit less, But the truth is, a man should not be praying 15 minutes, shachrit. That's not the proper way to do. So, he's kind of like, a little bit deceiving people there, a little bit deception going on there. But on the other hand, right, a woman, really can knock it off in 10, 15 minutes, the whole thing. Because they don't really have much to say compared to the men. So I think, that this guy, what he told you there is more relevant for the women. I don't know, maybe he thinks he's a woman, this guy. I don't know what he thinks, but anyway, right? So I'm not really sure. But
he was running. Actually, when you mentioned it's like running through it, it reminded me of the person. He was just
right, exactly, yeah. So yeah, better to say less and not run through it. So his words do apply in certain cases, where a person like has to go to work and he has no choice, in a very limited time. Okay, so he does like a minimal thing there, but to do this every day as a man, it's not proper to do like that, because you should say the whole thing from right. Why skip out this? Why skip out that? Right? Who gave you permission to skip out like that? The person has to know, but really, he gave good advice for the ladies. That's really more for the ladies. He gave nice advice. Okay, whatever. But anyway, right? So I remember I used to have a rabbi. He used to tell me like this, that a woman shouldn't have to pray more than 10, 15 minutes a day. In other words, if she can do that, she can finish everything. Because the women, what they need to do, they get up, they do Birkat HaShachar, the Birkat HaTorah, they say Shema, the first paragraph, and then the Amidah, so that really shouldn't take more than 15 minutes. It's true, So, okay, whatever, he wants to be a woman, that's up to him, but, most of us have to stay the way we are. What can I do? But, okay, anyway, it's interesting. Okay. So did you want to say something else? I'm sorry, before we go on. Okay.
No, it just reminded me of that guy running through the whole thing.
Okay. Okay. All right, good. There's also more Shulchan Aruch here before we go on. There's a few of them. So it says Shulchan Aruch like this. צריך לכוון בפסוק פותח את ידיך. So it says when you say פותח את ידיך from Ashrei, you have to have a concentration there. ואם לא כיוון, so he says, if you didn't have concentration, what should you do? צריך לחזור לאמור פעם אחרת. You have to go back and say it again. So this is like crucial, you got to say it, you got to make sure you said it right. ואומרים פסוק ואנחנו נברכיה, and then we say this pasuk, אחר תהילה לדוד, that's what the Ramah says. The koflin, so it says, we double, what do we double? One second. Yeah. Koflin pasuk kol hashemal te'aleliyah. This pasuk, right, which is the end of the pasuk Zimra, we double it. Why is that? Lefi shehu sof pasuk Zimra, because it's the end of pasuk Zimra. V'chen pasuk Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Right. Also that one we say it twice, which is right before doing Az Yashir. כשמגיע ואתה אדוני אלוהינו מודים אנחנו לך. When it comes to this place, or the pasuk v'chol koma lefanecha tishtachave, or that one, and lishchot. You shouldn't bow down there. He says, right? Don't bow down. Ulishtachavot sham lekama siman kufit gimel, like it says over there in the chapter 113. Nahagu la'amod k'sheomrim Baruch Shemar. So it says the custom is to stand when we say Baruch Shemar, and also vayivarech David v'yishtabach, and also these things, right? We say standing. The truth is that the Sfardim, though, they can say Ishtabach sitting. Ishtabach, they can say sitting. But the Ashkenazim are accustomed to say Ishtabach standing. We go more according to the Kabbalah, So the Kabbalah teaches us where you have to stand and where we have to sit, exactly. So we go more according to that. And the reason, by the way, that, I remember one rabbi, one time he asked me, why is it, he says that sometimes you got to stand, sometimes you got to sit. What's the purpose of all that, Why can't you just say everything standing or everything sitting? Sometimes you got to get up, sometimes you got to sit. So the answer is that according to Kabbalah, different prayers have different qualities, So some of them are olam nekeva, some are olam zachar, some of them are male worlds, some of them are female words, right? Whatever these things mean according to Kabbalah, male and female. So each one has its own quality. So therefore, each one has its own, its own formula. You got to either stand or sit, So as the Ramah says over here, the Ashkenazim, they stand for Ishtabach, but we sit for Ishtabach. In other words, you could sit if you want. You don't have to stand. You could also stand if you want. There's no problem with that either. But the truth is, it's probably better to sit. I remember, one rabbi told me something interesting, that he went to a certain yeshiva, American yeshiva here in America, which is called Telz, which is the one in Cleveland. So he said, there's two of them. There's one in Chicago, there's one in Cleveland. He went to the one in Cleveland. So he said over there, what they did was when they said Psukei Zimra, right? They used to tell the kids to stand, the boys, all the way through, even though you're not required to do that according to halakha. So I asked him, I said, why were they doing that? What's the purpose of that? I mean, the halakha doesn't require that. So what, the yeshiva is going against the halakha? What's going on? So he told me, he says, no, they had a certain intention with that. The intention was, that they saw the boys, when they sit, they fall asleep, So therefore, they told them to stand. This way, they won't fall asleep. That's the reason why. So each one according to his own predicaments. That's the way it is, Okay, good. Let's see if we got anything else left here. Another thing he says in Shulchan Aruch, צריך להפסיק בין אלילים ובין אדוני שמיים עשה. You have to make a stop over here between these two things. Gotta stop there, right? This is also Psukei Zimra. And then he says another thing. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, I guess we're done pretty much, yeah. We got everything done. Beautiful. So we'll go to the next chapter. By the way, if you guys have any questions about Passover, please let me know, whatever. Any questions about halakha, whatever, how to do this, how to do that. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to chapter 52, which seems to be relatively small. Let's see what's going on there. Yeah. Okay, so it says in the Torah, oh, so now, right, what happened? He came to the shul, and in the morning, right, and he found them that they're already at the end of Psukei Zimra, all the things that we just described. So in other words, basically what we're saying is that he came late, right? He really should have come a little bit earlier in order to pray with the tzibur, but he's already like a little late. He's a little bit behind the 8 ball there. So it says, regarding this, Alzeh Shalu Rabbi Netornai. They asked Rabbi Netornai, Ma'u shitpalel im hatzibur. So what's the din over here? The question is like this, right? Should you now go back and start from the beginning? In other words, pray by yourself, basically, right? At your own pace. Or should you just go now together with them and, pick it up with them? What's better to do? So he says, Vayomar Psukei Zimra. Should you say Psukei Zimra with the tzibur together, where they are, go with them? I'm sorry, I didn't say it right. It says like this, right? First, do the Amidah with the tzibur, do a standing prayer, the silent prayer with the tzibur, with the community, and then afterwards, you make up whatever you lost, right? Psukei Zimra. Can you do that or not, right? To reverse the order, in other words, in order to pray with the minyan. So the question is like this. It's a fundamental question. What's more important, to pray with the minyan or to do in the right order? This is the question, that we're asking. Okay? It's a very fundamental question. So it says this rabbi, he's, by the way, one of the Geonim, right? Rabbi Netornai, one of the Geonim. So it says Rabbi Netornai Gaon, והשיב שאינו יכול, he says, no, you cannot do that. כי תקנום קודם תפילת, so he says, you know why? Because the Psukei de Zimra was only enacted to do before the prayers, not after. So he says you can't do that. Sorry, right? There's no way to do it later on. You know, afterwards, after you prayed. That's what he says. Okay. Ela Omer Bet Shema Baruch Shamar. So he says, what should he do then if he came late? Let him say Baruch Shamar ad mehulal betishbachot until the end of Baruch Shamar. And then Be'omer Teilat David, then it says Ashrei, Umedaleg ad alalu abikacho, and he skips to this last psalm. Right? Be'omer Kol haneshamat hallelujah. He says the last verse over there. Be'chotem b'ishtabach, and then he does ishtabach. So meaning what? He does a short version, right, of the whole thing, because he came late. Right? Umaher litpalel im hatzibur. And let him pray with the community, right? That's good enough. Better to be with the community. Do a shorter job in order to pray with the minyan. And don't see them after the prayers. He says it's not relevant. Call ikar, not everything, right? This is not anything. After you finish praying, don't say nothing. Says that's the language of the Rosh. He says like this, Katav Rav Amram, it says Rav Amram, Im nichnas adam libet knesset, if a person enters the shul, and he sees that if he says all these verses, all these psalms, he won't be able to pray together with the community. Same question, right, as we had before. Imat Tzibur, Yomar Baruch Shamar, what should he do? Let him say Baruch Shamar, Mizmor Shel Teilat David, and then Ashrei, Bilvad, only that one, that's it. Vechotem b'ishtabach, and do ishtabach. V'katru b'shem Rav Yonah, they wrote in the name of Rabbi Yonah, Shamar b'shem Rabotav, they said the name was rabbis. Sheim nichnas b'shat shliach tzibur, matchil yotzer or. If he already now entered, right, even later, he came even late. They're already doing yotzer or, right? Ve'en lo shehut lomar afilu Teilat David. So he doesn't even have time to say Ashrei. He's even late for that. So what should he do? How does he do it? So he says, Tov hu sheikra kriyat shema b'birchotea b'itpalel. So he says, you know what? The proper thing to do is first do kriyat shema with the blessings and play the Amidah. In other words, go with the community together with them, right? Go together with them, with the community. And afterwards, you can come back and do Psukei de Zimra with blessings that before, and also afterwards. He says, you know why this is? Because it's always better to pray with the community. It's more accepted when you pray with the community, So therefore, this is the preferred way. Even though you're skipping around, right, going back and forth like this, right? So you see, right, there's two different opinions here. According to the first opinion we saw, whatever you missed, beforehand, you shouldn't make it up. You're not allowed to. But according to this opinion, you should make it up, whatever you missed before. Okay, so let's see the Shulchan Aruch and we'll see what's the halacha. First, we got to see Bet Yosef. Let's see Bet Yosef. Okay, so it says Bet Yosef. The Samak also wrote this. B'shem Rabbi Netronai, right? The same this Gaon. The Samak, the Hagaot, also the Smag, Hagaot, Maimoniot, B'shem Rab Moshe Gaon, also Rab Moshe Gaon. And so we have here 3 Geonim, right? B'katuv בהגת פסמך, it says in הגת סמך, צריך עיון, says, need some research about this. גבי הדאמינן, regarding what we said, יהיה חלקי בגומרי הלל. So it says, my portion should be the ones who finish הלל. משמע, שרוצה לומר, זה צריך לומר, implies that he wants to say, that you have to say, גם הללויה הללו את אדוני מן השמיים. You have to say also this psalm. וגם בהגאות מימוניות, also there he says, כתוב בשם ספר התרומה, it says the name of this book, שאומר אשרי ומדלג, he says אשרי, and he skips, ואומר הללו את אדוני מן השמיים. He says this one, הללו אל בקודשו, right, וחותם בהשתבח. אני finish with השתבח, עד כאן, that's the end of it. ונראה שטעמם, so it seems like the reasoning is like this, משום בפרק כל כתבי, because in this פרק of כל כתבי שבת, ק"ח עמוד ב', עד דאמר, regarding that which we said, Rabbi Yosef said, יהיה חלקי מגומרי הלל, that my portion should be with the ones who finish הלל, בכל יום every day, ויוקים לה בפסוקי דזמרה. So that's talking about פסוקי דזמרה, that you should read פסוקי דזמרה every day. So you see that it's very important. It's very praiseworthy to do that. Okay. Yokim Rabasir. Uperish Rashi. Rashi explains Psukkah Zimra. Right? What is that? These are two praises of God, Psalms. Halu et Adonai min hashamayim, Halu el b'kodsho. Right? He says there's only two of them, but we have five. Right? Aval Rabbeinu Yonah, but Rabbeinu Yonah says Be'arosh, and the Rosh Katu Perk En Omdin. They wrote over there. B'Shem Rav Amram, in the name of Rav Amram, Shem En Shehut Damar, that there is no time to say Ela Teilah David, only Teilah David, Levad, only that. Saki, that's enough. It's also good enough. Lomar Kodem Lo Baruch Shamar. You're going to say first Baruch Shamar, and then and then afterwards Ishtabach. And you're good with that, right? That's the best you could do because you came late. What can you do? But even though they enacted to say Teilah David Ashrei Ad Kol Neshamai before Kol Neshama, כיוון שעיקר התקנה נראה שלא הייתה אלא בפני זה המזמור. So he says, since the main enactment here seems was because of this psalm, it's enough just to do that. That's good enough already. Ashrei. Right? Hamizmor Kadesh Yomar Kiyat Shema. You should say that before Kiyat Shema, and then pray with the community, the Amidah, right? The most important thing is to do the Amidah with the community. That's why we go to Minyan. That's the main reason. We also have the issue of Kaddish, right? To say Kaddish, and also Baruch Hu, to answer Baruch Hu. There's all kinds of other things as well. But the main point over there is to say the Amidah with the Minyan. Okay, very good. So we're going on Beit Yosef. So it says, מה שכתב רבנו, כתב בשם רבנו יונה, שאמר בשם רבנו תב, שאם נכנס בשעה ששליח ציבור מתחיל יוצר. So, right, he went down Rabbeinu Yonah, person comes late, what does he do? Hem Divrei Rosh, is this from the Rosh? The peg in his car, in the aforementioned chapter. V'chen katru sham Talmidei Rabbeinu Yonah. They're also, the Talmidim of Rabbeinu Yonah wrote like that, his disciples. Umash katav Rabbi Netronai, and that which Rabbi Netronai said. V'lo yomar otam achat tfilah, they shouldn't say them after prayers, kol yikar at all. Let's talk about the blessing before them, afterwards. In other words, what he really meant to say is that don't say Baruch She'amar and don't say Ishtabach, because that was only decreed, enacted to say before the prayers and not after. It's way too late. But it says without the blessings, though, just to say the Psalms, you can say that, no problem. He wasn't talking about that. So he says, we wish that he would say everything, right? Every day, all day, right? Even, in other words, these things are so important that a person can read them all day. They're very praiseworthy. They're very holy. very conducive. Ken katav Rashba b'tshuva. So it says in Rashba b'tshuva. The Svat HaGeonim, according to Geonim, im mitpalel im hatzibur mi'ata. If he's going to pray with the community, now he says eno yachol lachazor v'lomar psukei zima. He's not going to be able to just go back and say psukei zima. Ima brachot with the blessings, right? Only with the blessings. Mashma be'edya. So it's implied, right, explicitly, shelo ikpidu haGeonim, that the Geonim were only particular about this. You know, shelo yamar azmirot achar hatfilah. They shouldn't say the psalms after the prayer, the Amidah, only with the blessings. So he says, the Baal Agur, Ratzalomar, he wants to say the Rabbi Netonai, this rabbi, there's not really arguing with Rabbeinu Yonah. The Dafka Keshamar, only when he said, Mitchila, from the beginning, Baruch Shamar, said Baruch Shamar, Tehillah, and then Ashrei, Ishtabach and Ishtabach. As en lomar hazmirot achar tefillah. Then you really shouldn't say these zmirot, right? These psalms after the prayers. But he doesn't have time. Lomar davar to say everything, whatever, say anything. If Shad the Modesh, it could be that he admits in that case, shomram achar tefillah. They should say them after the prayers. But Ishna the Rav Netronai. So he says the language of Rabbi Netronai, the Kamar. He says. Don't say them after the prayers. Call it at all. But it says really implies not like that. In other words, it implies that he didn't want you to say anything, not only the blessings but nothing. Okay, good. So so going on, says, therefore you must say that the reason Rabbi Netanai is Mishum that the Mizmorim, these Psalms, are praises to Hashem, and therefore you shouldn't put them before the prayers. It says Rabbi Simlai, the first paragraph of the Aval. But after the prayers, he says, "Lo, not so." That's only talking about the blessing. But without the blessings, we don't care, right? Let him do whatever it was he wants. Because I appreciate that we explained. It says written in the Tshuva, Rashba. I don't know how swear our customers like the Geonim. Shekibaltem Torah, Shekablatam Torah. So it says that their tradition is Torah. In other words, their traditions are very strong since they're closely related to the rabbis of the Talmud, right after them. They're juxtaposed to the Talmud, so they have a strong tradition. Right, so it says Kablatam Torah. He Bechen Katav Agur. That's what it says also in the Agur. Bishmon his name. Bechen Arid in Hog. So that's the proper way to be custom. He says Techem this Safek Bemidi the Brachotu. So he says since it's a doubt regarding blessings, Yesh Tachush Dilma Kaimalan Kediri Agionim. Maybe we should be concerned that maybe the halacha is like the Geonim. Nimtzad Mevarech Bracha Levatala. So therefore, he's blessing a blessing in vain. So he says, Katab Maria. It says Maria, the blessings that we are blessing, he says, in the morning, Yachol Amram, Achar Tfilatom. You can say after the prayers as well. He had no choice. Rashba, so he says, Rashba had a doubt. Are you allowed to blessings in the Torah? I have to say Ahava Rabba, because they said that a person who says goodbye to his whatever greetings with Ahava Rabba, from the blessings of Torah, so it says, according to the French rabbis, שכתבו שזו פותרת כל היום, that absolves you all day, מה שאין כן באהבה הרבה, not also באהבה הרבה, יש לברך אותה, there is to bless this blessing, עד כאן לשונות, this is the end of his language, וכבר כתבתי זה בסימן מ"ז, it says, I already wrote this in the chapter 47, so I'll just reread this last piece, I didn't catch it really so good, right, the Rashba here, so it says like this, the Rashba had a doubt, אם יכול לברך ברכת התורה, are you allowed to bless the blessings of the Torah, אחר אהבה רבה, I have to do אהבה רבה, right, which is one of the blessings of Kriyat Shema. מאחר שאמרו שנפתח באהבה רבה, because they said, right, that you are absolved when you say אהבה רבה, blessings of the Torah, you're absolved with that. So if that's the case, can you say now afterwards, the blessings of the Torah again? Right, so it says, Mivukat Torah, והנה לדעת רבותינו, this is according to our rabbis, Sarfatim, French rabbis, שכתבו שזו פותרת כל היום, so that absolves you all day. מה שאין כן באהבה רבה, not so באהבה רבה, יש לברך אותה, it says, therefore we should bless it anyway. that's the end of the language. וכבר כתבתי זה בסימן מ"ז. We already wrote it in chapter 47. Okay, very good. So let's see the Shulchan Aruch. Very nice. That's the whole chapter right there. Says Shulchan Aruch, אם בא לבית כנסת, person came to synagogue, מצא ציבור בסוף פסוקת הזמרה, אומר, and he found that the community already is ahead of him, right? They're already at the end of psukat hazimra. So he came late. What does he do? He's behind the 8 ball. So he should do like this. Omer Baruch Shamar, say Baruch Shamar, ad mehulal batishbachot, until the end of that. ואחר כך תהילה לדוד, נעשה אשרי, תהילה לדוד, עד מעתה ועד עולם הללויה, until the end of that psalm, which is Tehillim, right, Kuf Memhei, 145. ואחר כך, and afterwards he says, הללו את אדוני מן השמיים, עד לבני ישראל עם קרבו הללויה, until the end of that. So we say 2 psalms, right? That one and this one, Ashrei, and then Halu et Adonai min hashamayim. And afterwards he says Halu el bekacho ve'al kol ad kol neshama te'ala hallelujah. The end of that psalm, the end of the final psalm.
Kabbalah Harav, is that the end of Psalm 150?
Which one?
The last one you said, I don't know them in Hebrew. You said Psalm 1, Baruch Shamar, based on the Shulchan Aruch, correct?
Yes, that's the one. That's 150. Yes.
Thank you.
So what is he telling you, right? Basically, to do 145, 148, and 150. If your time is limited, try to do at least those 3. But as we said in the Beit Yosef, right, if you have less time, then you should do just like 1 or 2. So which is the most important one? Ashrei is more important than the others. And then, right, also 150. So if you can do just Ashrei, just do Ashrei. If you have time a little bit more, do also 150. If you have a little bit more time, also do 148. Depending on your timing. So what's the point over here? The point is we want you to pray with the tzibur, to pray with the community together, because that's when the prayer is accepted. So therefore, we prefer that you should do it that way. Skip around a little bit, you came late, and go with the community. So says the Rama, אם יש לו שירות יותר, if he has a little bit more time, let's say, what should he do? Yomar Odu L'Adonai Kir'u, right? This also says that one, it says. Ad Vehu Rachum, and then until Vehu Rachum, Vidaleg Ad Vehu Rachum, and then skip Vehu Rachum, Shkodem Ashrei, which is before Ashrei, keep in time, Eno Rak Besukim Melukatim. Because until that point, it's only like gathered verses, not really one psalm. Gathered verses collected from various places. Okay, so then, right, it says Shulchan Aruch, V'chakach yishtabach, and say then yishtabach, V'chakach yotzer or Kriyat Shema b'rikotea. And then you say the blessings of the Kriyat Shema and the Kriyat Shema, V'tpalel im hatzibur, and pray the Amidah with the tzibur. This is the most important thing, right? Do the Amidah together with them. We already mentioned, right, that women are not obligated to go to Minyan, so we're not talking about the ladies, right? That's something else. The men are obligated to go, women are not obligated to go. Okay, so that's that. Then, but if he doesn't have so much time, skip also 148, as we said, right? That's what to do. And it says Rama, it says even if you don't have less time than that, just to do Baruch Shamar with Tila the B'nai Ashrei. And then Ishtabach, right? That's what you do. That's the minimum, right? That's what your friend said on YouTube, right? The same thing, right? That's pretty much what he said. Okay. Right. What's the difference? The difference is that here we're talking about you came late, right? So we prefer you should pray with the tzibur. But if you're just praying at home, so then why skip around? You shouldn't do that. Unless, as we said, unless you have to go to work, right? That's something else. If you got to go to work, you got to be there. Your boss, is going to fire you, right? If you don't come on time. So you can't play games with that, So that's a different story. Very good. So let's go on. So says the Shulchan Aruch furthermore, V'im kvar yitchilu hatzibur yotzer. It says if the community already started to do Yotzer, in other words, they already finished Psukat Zimra, not doing the blessings of Kriyat Shema, then Shahut Lomar Psukat Zimra. So you don't have time to say Psukat Zimra, otherwise you're going to miss the minyan. Afilu b'dilug, right? Even if you skip around, it's not going to help you. So what should you do? So it says Ikra Kriyat Shema b'kotea, read the Kriyat Shema with the blessings together with the tzibur, with the community, right? V'itpalel imahem, and then pray together with them the Amidah. And then what you do is you go back and whatever you missed, you make it up at the end, right? But without a blessing, right? You're not allowed to bless now. Why? Because since this was you can only bless when you say it at the right time, which is before the prayers. But once you're doing it after the prayers, it's a make-up, so there, it's not the right time, so therefore you cannot bless. So it says, below bracha shelifnehem, right? Whether it's the blessing before or after, it doesn't make it. You don't say either one of them. So says the Rama over here, but says the Rama, you gotta say Birkat HaShachar, right? You can't mess around with that. So you know what the Rama is saying over here? It's an important thing to understand, right? That just because you came late and you prayed with the tzibur and you skipped Psukat Zimra, some parts of it or whatever. So you can't do those blessings now, Psukat Zimra, Baruch She'amar Yishtabach, cannot do. But the morning blessings, right, Birkat HaShachar, you should do it also after the Amidah, if you didn't do it before. You should do it, because you're obligated to do that all day. So, not really connected one with the other. So therefore, if you didn't have time to do Birkat HaShachar, blessings in the morning, because you ran to shul, like a maniac, sweating, running, whatever. And so, he doesn't have time. So you didn't do Birkat HaShachar before you went to shul. So what should you do? After he finishes the prayers, do Birkat HaShachar afterwards, right? But Maran Rabbi he writes that when you do it like this, in this way, there's one thing you can't say, Birkat HaShachar, right? You know what that is? You can't say the first one, right? Elohai Neshama. You can't do that because you already covered it by what you said in the Kriyat Shema, blessings of Kriyat Shema. But if it was a woman, who doesn't say those blessings anyway, like the Sephardi ladies don't say it. The Ashkenazim, they do say the blessings of Kriyat Shema. So if you didn't say them, if you're a woman, Sephardi lady, so then you can even say that blessing as well, no problem. But for the men, you cannot do it because they already covered it by doing the blessings of Kriyat Shema. Okay, good. So very nice. What else do we have here? Okay, pretty much we're done. So you guys got any questions on Pesach? You guys, we got 3 minutes left. Okay, everybody's silent, so I guess we'll try to do a little bit more. Let's see what we can do here. Go to the next chapter. Yeah, okay, but it's why, if you guys don't have any questions, I'll ask the questions for you, right? So just want to tell you a couple of things, right, to know that everybody's obligated to drink 4 cups of wine, even the ladies, right? If wine is too harsh for you, drink grape juice. Maran Rabbi he used to drink grape juice on Pesach. Not wine, because when he was old, he couldn't tolerate the wine. It was too strong for him. So he used grape juice. That's one thing, right? Make sure you do 4 cups of wine. The minimum size of the cup has to be 3 ounces. Not like 5 ounces like some people say, right? According to Chazon Ish. You don't need 5 ounces. 3 ounces is enough. Whatever. That's good. Good. What else should we know? And also, everybody's obligated to eat the matzah. It has to be guarded matzah, shmura matzah, right? The round ones, not the ones made in the factory, the ones that are made handmade. You gotta get those. Make sure you get at least 1 package of those to do both nights, right? The Haggadah, because we have to do 2 nights. We're not in Eretz Israel, right? We're in Galut, so we're doing 2 nights. In Eretz Israel, they do only 1 night. So make sure you get enough matzah for 2 nights, for Galut, for the exile, right? That's important to know. And what is the proper maror? Right? The proper maror is celery. Even though some people have accustomed to use carrots and onions and all kinds of other interesting potatoes, the reason why they started to use those vegetables is because they didn't have the real one. The real karpas is celery, Will the real karpas please stand up, right? As they say, right? So the celery will stand up. Because in Hebrew, the word karpas, it means celery. That's what it means. So make sure you get some stalks of celery. Better to use the stalks than to use the leaves because the leaves have bugs. So that's that, right? And what is the maror? The maror, the best is romaine lettuce, right? Some people like to use chrein, the horseradish, but that stuff is deadly. You may wind up in the hospital if you eat too much of that stuff. So if you want to be a good Jew, use romaine lettuce, but you should buy like a kosher one, which doesn't have bugs. Or you got to check it yourself, one or the other. You got to check, make sure there's no bugs there. Or buy one of those kosher ones. So yeah, if you have a kosher market in your area, go and find them, Baruch Hashem. They have it everywhere. Go to a nice kosher supermarket, you'll find everything there. All you need, right? So the proper maror is romaine lettuce, but there's also other ones. In other words, the Gemara says romaine lettuce is the best thing to use for maror. Why is it the best? Because it resembles the galut of Mitzrayim, right? The exile. Because the romaine lettuce, on the top it's like sweet, and then when you go to the bottom to the stalk, it gets bitter. So that's the way it was, the Galut of Mitzrayim. It started out sweet, but then it got bitter, the same thing. That's one thing. Another thing is, right, that the word chasa, right, which is the romaine lettuce in Hebrew, right, or in Aramaic, whatever you want to call it, right? It's called chasa. So the word chasa means to be merciful, So HaKadosh Baruch Hu had mercy on us to redeem us from Egypt, So that's why it's better to eat chasa, which is romaine lettuce. Just make sure it's clean, right? No bugs there. No worms, no bugs. Make sure you got it all clean. First you wash it good, and then you check it a little bit, or just go buy a kosher one, right? It's already been done for you. That's nothing better than that. So that's that, right? So make sure you have that. So, right, we have the main things, right? We have the maror, which is the romaine lettuce, karpas. We have the 4 cups of wine. Right? But even more important than all those things, you know what it is? To read the Haggadah. So make sure you have a good Haggadah, a nice normal one, right? So each one according to his custom. Ashkenazim use Ashkenazi, Sfaradim use Sfaradi, right? Right? I don't have to tell you that. But they're all the same anyway, They're not really much different, It's more or less the same thing, but there's different customs, So better to use your own custom, That's the thing, Why use somebody else's custom, what I mean? We don't see anybody jumping to do your customs, So why are you jumping to do theirs? Don't be a wannabe, wannabe. I wanna be. Don't wannabes. Be what you are. Don't pretend like you're something else. That's the thing, right? And I heard that some people are discussing, the issue of eating kitniot, legumes on Pesach. So the rule is, Sfaradim, they eat legumes on Pesach. So don't let anybody tell you it's not allowed. I don't know. Some crazy people on the internet are talking about all kinds of crazy things.
I'll tell you guys the truth. Because the Ashkenazim suffer in life more, we have to keep it more strict tradition.
Right, that's a little bit different. What you're talking about something else, but here, right, the thing is that but the truth is, the reason why they come up with the custom not to eat legumes, to eat rice, is because it got mixed up with wheat sometimes. They used to use the same sacks for the rice and the wheat, But nowadays, nobody does that anymore. So therefore, it's not really much of a concern. But anyway, the custom of the Ashkenazim is not to eat legumes, right? So therefore, they don't eat rice, they don't eat corn, they don't eat chickpeas, hummus, tchina, any of those
So
things.
it has, in other words, I was right all along. It has nothing to do with really God or spirituality or diminishing one's soul. It's got more to do with the tradition and the fact that something got mixed with something, God knows when, and since then they've kept that.
Right, because because they didn't want to eat wheat because wheat is chametz, what I mean? So that's why they, you understand? So they try to avoid eating that. But the truth is that nowadays that concern is not really so vivid, not really so realistic. But anyway, since they took it on as a custom, they keep it until this day.
Yeah, but you said you said that there was some truth to that statement that guy made in that restaurant to me years
Right, but
ago.
that's talking about something else. Right, not really this custom particularly.
Yeah,
this custom is a little bit different, but I see what you mean, though. I understand what you mean. But anyway,
there was that week. That was that holiday, the week that the restaurant was open, but
you're talking about in the summer, right? The 3 weeks.
Yes, we eat meat and they stayed away from it.
All right, we're talking about Rosh Chodesh. Yes. Okay, so anyway, right, as we said, so everybody keeps their own custom, but the truth is, that it says the Mishnah Brura, which is the rabbi of the Ashkenazim,
Yeah.
It says that even though the Ashkenazim don't eat kitniot on Passover, but you're allowed to keep it in the house. You don't have to sell it. You don't have to treat it like it's chametz. It's not chametz. You know what I mean? So you can keep it in the house. You can have it in your closet, whatever, put it away somewhere. You don't have to sell it even if you're Ashkenazi. And also, he writes further on that if it got mixed in with some other foods, let's say, right, corn or rice, it gets nullified in a majority. So if the majority is kosher, the majority is not kidniot, so it gets nullified, right? So in other words, the Ashkenazim are also quite lenient about that. They don't sell it, they don't treat it like chametz, like real chametz. They don't go that far, even though some people think that these things are like that, but they're mistaken. They just haven't researched properly. These things.
I'm surprised because Ashkenazim are big in selling things.
So yeah, they're good. They're good in business. You're right. So here's the thing, right? So therefore, let's say, right, Ashkenazi comes to his Friday guy's house, right, on Passover. So he can just sit there, and eat everything, except the legumes, even though they're eating rice, Just he doesn't eat it. He can sit there on the table with them, no problem. Just don't eat the rice. Have all the other stuff. You know what I mean? Whatever. So,
Rabbi, let me ask you something. Do you think that Sephardim, for example, Georgians, us, will be forgiven for sins like stealing and petty theft because we weren't born with Ashkenazi brains?
Well, I'll leave that to the imagination. I don't know exactly. You know what? Maybe we'll let you answer that one. I'm not really sure what the answer is.
I don't know, because since we don't have their brains, not us or your family, but all these losers, like all they did was steal and wind up in jail for half of their life, and while the Ashkenazim were just wheeling and dealing,
Well, I don't know. I'm not going to get into all this stuff now, right? This lashon hara over there,
No, I'm not.
Some juicy
lashon hara. I'm not mentioning names,
Right, I understand. But even if you talk lashon hara about the community, it's also lashon hara. Even a certain community, whatever. So anyway, we try to avoid that stuff. So anyway, I wish you guys a great holiday. We'll see you tomorrow, Bezrat Hashem. Chazak u'baruch. Any questions? Please don't hesitate to ask. Right? And David, bring all your questions. David, tomorrow, bring everything.
Well, the girls usually giggle at my questions. I didn't hear anything, so.
Well, yeah, we're having a good time. Yeah, we're having a good time.
All right.
Okay, God bless you. Chazak u'baruch.
God bless.
All the best. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.